Did you hear the one about the two ex-London lawyers who are married to each other, who get confused for brother and sister so often it's weird, who moved to a different country, which one of them had never been to before, sell everything they own, have a baby, and start a plant-based vegan soft-serve concept in Santa Monica? Oh, with no prior cooking experience. Me either. Until one of them contacted me for an interview. Hey, before we get stuck into episode 415 of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, the Marketing Gold is made exclusively possible thanks to American Express, aka Amex. Now, I say exclusively because for the past 4 weeks, and including this week, Amex has kindly taken all available advertising spots. So go ahead, Google Amex Business to find out how their suite of business cards can meet the financial needs of small business owners just like you. Plus, find out how Amex can help in getting your business expenses to reward you. Just like past guest Chris Gray did. He flies somewhere exotic about 15 times a year. At the pointy end of the plane, for free. Oh boy. Simply Google Amex Business to find out more, then try and wipe the smile off your face.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show, where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to the Small Business Big Marketing Show. I am your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, you're a motivated business owner, and you are ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. Guess what? Big show today. Flu-ridden and all. I will get through this. I've got a bit of a virus, a bit of the man flu. Stick with me. Ex-London lawyer turned vegan soft-serve retailer Michael Philippou shares why him and his wife Victoria turned their back on the law to chase their vegan soft-serve dream. Very inspiring story, this one. I respond to a long-time listener who was more than a little critical of last week's episode, specifically the interview. And 2 more lucky listeners share what marketing is working for them, and in return, I give them some prizes. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Hey, in the coming weeks, you and I will be meeting ex-Buddhist monk turned small business owner Clark Scott to talk about compassion in business, as well as many other topics. Plus, I'll have all the news from the Australian Podcast Awards, which are on this Saturday night in Melbourne, which I am emceeing, and a finalist in a couple of categories, thanks to you, my precious, precious listener. But right now, let's meet Michael Philippou, that ex-London lawyer who I mentioned at the top of the show. He and his wife, Victoria, also an ex-London lawyer, both suffer from a massive sweet tooth, but are also conscious about what they eat. So they started experimenting out of hours, like lawyers don't work long hours already, and finally landed upon what they call their fruit swirl recipe, which they started selling to local businesses. And it wasn't long before they had proof of concept, because they received very quickly a BBC Good Food Award, quit their jobs, and got featured in Vogue, Tatler and Jamie Oliver's magazine. Boy, oh boy, that's good proof of concept. Good reason to quit one's job and chase their passion. They then decided to sell up everything, and here's the kicker. They moved to Santa Monica, the heart of veganism, where they had only 3 months due to visa restrictions to make this business idea happen. Otherwise, they're going to get kicked out, sent back to cold old London town. Now, you know why I love this story? For many reasons. It's full of business courage and full of marketing smarts. One of the things Michael's very good at is wowing his customers. You've got 2 people here who've had the guts to make a massive life change, to create a product and business they absolutely love, and who are laser focused on creating amazing customer experiences. I think a part of many small businesses marketing that's underdone. As a side note, Michael's pitch to me for this interview was so good, so excellent, in fact, that I've created a blog post from it, pointing out why it was effective in securing him an interview. You could probably learn a lot from that if you are looking to get interviews in the media. Righto, I started off by asking Michael how the idea for the Frozen Fruit Co came about.
Well, originally it was something we were both looking for in the market and we just couldn't find. We were lawyers at the time. We had a really bad sweet tooth. We loved frozen treats, loved ice cream. And we were just didn't love the way it made you feel kind of both mentally and physically after you kind of eat pot. A lot of stuff has long ingredient lists, lots of added sugars. And we were just like, why can't you just get that same kind of feeling, but with a really simple ingredient list and no nasties, but doesn't compromise in taste or flavour. So something you could almost have for breakfast. And that kind of really kind of got us onto the idea. But it wasn't to say that we weren't put off from the idea for a bit. To begin with as well.
In what way?
Well, when we first came up with it, we were lawyers and we didn't have any clue about making any of this. So we went on to an ice cream course. We took a day off from work, just told everyone we were, taking a few days off for vacation. Went off and did this ice cream course. And we kind of went there just like, how do you actually even make ice cream? And so we kind of learned that process and we started like speaking to some of the people there and say, look, we just want to make it just from fruit. It's not a sorbet with not water. We just want to use whole fruit pulp and sweeten it with just fruit sugars. And everyone was like, no, you can't do that. That's not the right way. There's no money in it. Just using fruit pulp is too expensive. It's just not how the industry works. And I have to admit, we came away from that day actually a little deflated because we're like, well, these guys have been doing it for years. They're the experts. Maybe there's a reason someone hasn't done it before. Mm-hmm. And so we got put off from it for a bit, but we just kept on coming back to the idea. And we were like, well, who says it has to be done that way? And actually, I think one of the advantages we've had is that we actually don't come from that industry or we don't come from a culinary background. So no one's told us, this is how you make a frozen treat. It has to be with a custard base or with a dairy base, or even lots of alternatives now are made with a base. So we were like, well, why does it have to be like that? And I feel that's kind of given us an advantage.
Michael, just for a minute, so many questions in that short monologue from you. I have. But two things. First of all, I love naivety, and I've spoken about naivety in previous episodes. And what I mean by that is when you go into an industry or try something new about which you have no idea. And often that brings a very fresh approach. And when I say that, I go, yeah, that sounds good in theory, but what about the people who have been in the industry for a long time and know it backwards? And I sort of do know in quotation marks. I mean, is naivety truly a wonderful advantage?
I think yes and no. I think yes, it is, because it just lets you look at stuff from a different way. Because, everyone was saying you do it this way. And, Danny Meyer has this great saying. He always starts with the phrase, you should always ask yourself, well, whoever said you had to do such and such a way? And that's the first question you should always be asking yourself. So who said ice cream has to be made this certain way? And then what you can do is then you can use those people in the industry and you can use their knowledge and their expertise to kind of leverage off your naivety. So
I like that.
That's how I kind of view it, because, you're not going to be an expert, but
of course
I'm a big fan of, filling your gaps where you can't and building that knowledge gap. And that's where people in the industry can help.
Does naivety wear thin?
It can be frustrating because, the main question you want to ask yourself is, is there even a market for what I'm doing? Do people actually want this? Everyone loves ice cream. Everyone loves vanilla ice cream. It's the best-selling flavour in probably every country in the world. But, the real question is what am I doing? Is there a market for, and do people want it? And I think that's the more important question you've got to ask yourself.
Great question. I also, before we sort of go into the journey of how you've built Frozen Fruit Co., I'm interested in, you guys, your wife Victoria, yourself, you're lawyers. You've gone to the trouble I don't know how long a law degree is in the UK, but here it's a number of years, 5 or 6 years, I think. So you studied law, you practice law, you've set yourself up for a life of law, I guess. You tell me, but you've invested a lot of time and energy and have the expectations of family and all that stuff. Oh yes, look at Michael and Victoria, the lawyers. And you have literally just walked away from that, although I imagine you use a lot of your learnings in running a business. But I just feel like it's such a big decision. Was it for you guys?
Oh yeah, it was. And most people thought we were bonkers. We didn't tell everyone at our law firm what we were going to do because we just know everyone would be like, "You're doing what?" But for us, it was we really saw that gap in the market. And doing a law degree is a long time, but the great thing about you get so much knowledge of when you do law.
Yes.
You have a different hat you can wear. So you can look at stuff from a different perspective. And one of the bad things I think a lot of lawyers suffer from is that we're probably a bit too risk adverse. You think about, I've got to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And, oh my God, you think about everything what's happening wrong. And that can be a really hard mindset to change to when you want to become an entrepreneur, when you have to think, well, what's everything that can happen right?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I must say, if I reflect on some of the famous lawyers who've gone on to do amazing things, I think a lot of the cast of Monty Python were lawyers, and we've got a TV production company in Australia called Working Dog, and I think a few of those guys who are now sort of TV personalities were also lawyers. So I guess the bottom line is it sets you up for being able to do a lot of things. And, a big expense in running a business can be legal fees. So yours are free. I like that. Yeah.
And also, like, with being a lawyer, your pay is quite good to begin with.
Yes.
So you have to get out quick, because if you're going to do something, your pain barrier becomes too much. Because if you're dropping suddenly your salary on 100K, you're going to have to be an entrepreneur, and it's suddenly dropping to a fifth of what you're doing. Your lifestyle is dropping too much. Your pain level becomes too much. So we were like, look, we're at a level where our pay, whatever we're dropping in salary, we can deal with that. Our pain level is okay. But I don't know. So if I was to carry on, maybe it'd just be too much of a, change in lifestyle.
Well, I think your pain level was less about the salary you were earning back then and more about the fact that you had a newborn baby and you're all of a sudden deciding to completely change careers and start a business. That is a pain point right there.
Yeah, well, our baby was born last year in the business. So she was born when we started in the States.
Beautiful. There you go. So now you were living in London. You didn't feel it was the right market for what you wanted to do with Frozen Fruit Co. So instead you're going, Los Angeles or Dubai. And I understand the more research you did, the clearer your vision became. What was the research that you did and what did it reveal?
We have this saying that we say between us, which is, you make big decisions with your gut and small decisions with detail. And when we came up with the idea, instantaneously Victoria looked at me and was like, "We got to get this to LA or Dubai, the Middle East." Those, and it was just kind of one of those big gut instinct moments. And I thought straight away, yeah, I completely agree. Now, bear in mind at this point, I had never even been to the States before, let alone Los Angeles.
No.
Victoria had visited once before, but I was just like, you know what, that seems to really resonate. And then we were kind of like, well, let's kind of work out why. And so we kind of started doing more and more research. LA just became a more of a fit to go to, just because we felt there was same language. We felt it was kind of easier to do there.
Good climate.
And then good climate. And we started researching. So this is where Pinkberry started. This is where soft serve really understands, Froyo. This is the center of Froyo. People understand the concept, and we want to take that concept one step further. It's where, the large vegan, a large health conscious population. And it's a place where lots of food trends start and people look to for food trends.
Are you speaking specifically of Los Angeles, of Santa Monica? Where are you referring?
I'm speaking specifically of Los Angeles and Santa Monica, yeah. Santa
Monica, I've been there once. What a beautiful, beautiful town. It would just be full of vegans, I'm guessing. It's just way too cool for school.
Lots of vegans, lots of plant-based, lots of Brits.
Lots of Brits getting away from the cold.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just people are very open to trying out new concepts and new food items, and it's really a lot where early innovators are, and we knew that's where we needed to be. We needed to be where people were going to latch onto it quickly.
So there's an energy in Santa Monica, I'm guessing, but you wouldn't have known that before you got there. Is sort of Santa Monica a bit like the Silicon Valley for foodies?
Yes and no. I mean, when we came here, we basically had 3 months to find our lease. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to come back again for a year. So we had 3 months, and we were just like, we need to find somewhere. And we started kind of looking all over LA, trying to scope out every area, and we just came across this lease on Montana Avenue in Santa Monica, and it was kind of the right space, the right size, the rent was good, it seemed like in a good location. So I admit openly to that was just a bit of luck. Can
I just understand that? I'm getting very, very... the detail of this fascinates me, Michael, so just humour me here. You're in London, you've made the decision, you and Victoria, you're heading off, you're packing up, leaving the law, leaving everything, I guess, packing up with the view that you weren't necessarily going to be coming home permanently for a long time, yet you're going to America... And you've literally got 3 months. Is that the visa thing whereby what do you have to do within 3 months in order to be allowed to stay?
So basically, they wouldn't grant us our visa, which is an E2 business investment visa, which means that you can't get your visa, and it makes perfect sense until they want to see that your business is actually going to open and start. You're not just going to come in and you're going to disappear. So part of that is they want to see if you're a brick and mortar business, you're going to have a store, you have a rent, you signed your lease.
Was that a blessing, having that 3-month deadline?
At the time, we were both pretty stressed, I'm not going to lie. But in a way, I feel like sometimes when the pressure's on like that, you just got to go into that mode and just like, right, we've got to find this and do something, otherwise it's not going to happen. So in that respect, it meant that we couldn't just muck about and just lay on a beach and relax for 3 months.
I imagine it would have been very stressful. You and Victoria, from what I've read, have been sort of like high school sweethearts. So you've been together for a number of years. You know each other very well. Tell us about the conversations in the middle of the night, in the middle of LA, where you've gone, oh, hang on, this is scary.
Well, I don't think we ever had that conversation. We had panic conversations where we're like, we don't think we're going to find something. What are we going to do next? But it never really crossed our minds. We were like, we got to find. We didn't want to just find the location and just get in somewhere, and then it turns out to be a bad location. It had to be the right spot, and it had to be the right size. Because in a brick and mortar business, we were looking originally in Beverly Hills.
Start at the top.
We were looking at Beverly Hills, and to be honest, we were probably a bit naive, and the rents were crazy. But we thought that's where we wanted to be. But that's because we were basing it off what we were reading about Los Angeles and not kind of what we knew about Los Angeles. So it was more like we wanted to make the right decision, and if this doesn't work, then what we're going to do next. We're going to go back and reassess and how we're going to do it. And by this point, we sold everything we owned. So it was more kind of, we were committed to this. It wasn't kind of like time to panic.
Do you mind if I ask, and you don't have to put a number to this, but did you have a fair bit of financial backing?
We got lucky. So while we were lawyers, we bought a house in London. The London property market went crazy. We ended up flipping the property, and then we ended up moving to Kent, and then we flipped that property, and then we ended up with our lump sum for ourselves that we could invest in the business. So that's how we did it ourselves. I mean, yeah. So,
okay, we're in Santa Monica. Within 3 months, you found this wonderful location. I don't know the exact avenue you're talking about, but I'm guessing it's sort of in that kind of key area of Santa Monica, down from the pier, whatever you say. Is that right?
Yeah. We're up from the pier. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, then what do you do? I mean, you've got to get a name, you've got to get branding, you've got to start manufacturing, you've got to get staff, there's so many things you've got to do. You simply just kind of create a list and work through it?
Yeah, it was a long list. I mean, the first thing was like, you can't do anything until you get your company incorporated, and then you have to get an EIN from the IRS, it takes a while. And we were just kind of slowly kind of trying to break down all the thing. The hardest bit was getting all your permits and everything, and getting a contractor to do all the plumbing and all the work.
What was your network over there like? You knew a whole lot of people, right?
No, we didn't know anyone.
He says facetiously.
Yeah, we a lot of it was kind of Googling. I mean, we were lucky. Our landlord was very specific about certain contractors he wanted used. So that was we were limited in what contractor we were using. But a lot of it was just reaching out to people, getting an idea what to doing, speaking to, the local health departments in the city and being like, what do we want to do? And actually we spent a long time sitting down and reading all of the health code and reading all of the building code and going up to building and building.
The lawyer in Michael in Victoria comes out.
Yeah, and it's not very interesting, but it's actually really essential. And, when we look at a place and we'd be like, okay, this is what needs to be done. The rules in and out. So that was a big part of it.
Now, we are talking, fascinating story, we're talking to Michael Philippou, who's also representing his wonderful wife, Victoria. They've set up Frozen Fruit Co. in Santa Monica, having left the legal profession in London. Now, Michael, let's talk marketing. As a small business, this is a quote from you, as a small business, I feel that one of the biggest mistakes we all make is that we go running off focusing on branding and social media, all the fun marketing things, but we forget about the basics, which are product and customer. I know you're big on both. Let's start with product. I've looked, the photos of your product look amazing. What's your approach to ensuring just the highest of standards?
It's got to wow people. The moment it goes into someone tastes it, they've got to be wowed. And that's really important. You can no substandard flavors, no compromising on what we do, no adding water. And that's really key. That's the biggest experience people have with us, is to have this tasting experience. And so if a flavor doesn't cut it, then it just doesn't go in. And we spend a long time coming up with our flavors, searching for ingredients, making sure they're really good ingredients. And, we only offer 4 flavors. We're a really streamlined business.
Wow.
Yeah, and because that's really important for us, because what we're doing is a new concept. It's not froyo, it's not soft serve, it's not sorbet, it's a fruit soft serve. So you've already got that barrier when someone comes in and I don't understand what this is. So we wanted it really streamlined, and 4 flavors, and then 4 different flavors. So when people try them, they're like, wow, all of these are really good.
As someone who is freaked out by choice, I love the fact that you've only got 4 flavours. What's that famous burger joint in the States?
The In-N-Out.
In-N-Out burgers. I mean, That is one of the most limited menus that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But, boy, every In-N-Out burger I drove past while I was there had lines out the door.
Yep.
People love it. So 4 flavours, there's a great marketing case study where a jam manufacturer had an aisle end in a supermarket, and they thought this is going to be great, and they went with 20 flavours of jam. And the sales were not what they were hoping for. They slowly reduced the amount of flavours on offer, and the optimal amount of flavours was 4, where they made the most sales, because we don't like to choose.
And we see it in the store. We have 4 flavours, but our best seller is chocolate, and it's normally followed behind one other. So you think these places where they have 1,000,001 flavours, how many of them are loss leaders? I've just got to have them in there for the sake of it. So we're very much of the opinion it's better to do a few things, but do them really well, and let it speak for itself.
I have some bad news. I am an ice cream lover, and the Frozen Fruit Co. will never meet my demand of salted caramel. I don't think, because there's not a fruit in it.
Well, actually, you say that. So this is very ironic. This week, we're actually launching a salted date version.
Yeah, dates don't do it for me.
Which is our take on a salted caramel.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That said, I do love a sticky date pudding, despite the fact that I hate dates. I think it's because I just completely drown it in hot caramel sauce. So, okay, you are putting massive effort into product. Interestingly enough, as lawyers who you could argue aren't creative, although I think you'd be probably quite creative, I imagine that part of growing Frozen Fruit Co. for you is very exciting, coming up with flavours, making them, testing them, presenting them. Do you love that creative aspect?
I find that part the most stressful, I have to admit, because one of the things is we recognise that one of our marketing strategies is, we've got to introduce new flavours ever so often, because it's a good way for people to come back and be like, wow, I want to see what you're doing next. But we set kind of the standard so high on kind of taste level that we've become very picky. So if we don't like something, most of the flavors we do just don't end up getting made because we're like, it's just not good enough.
The stressful part of that creative part of your business comes from the fact that you don't want to get it wrong. Because I love being creative, but I also find it stressful. But I actually rationalise it by saying it's a creative tension in me. So when I've got to write something or put an episode together, I feel a sense of nervousness. But I actually have figured out that nervousness makes me create better things.
Yeah, I completely. And for us, the way I've kind of started to get around it recently is because before it was kind of like me and Victoria were the barrier for flavour development. So I kind of started to come out. So we get so many people come in the store. So, you know, I've started to be like, hey, you know what? I've just mixed a new flavour. You want to try it? Let's get some external feedback, you know, and objectify it rather than just going off what we're doing. So that's how this salted date flavour came about.
Well, good luck with that. You can send it over. It might be a bit difficult to send over, but we'll try it nonetheless.
Yeah, some dry ice.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk customer experience. Specifically, transaction and reaction marketing is something that you subscribe to. You talk about wowing the living daylights out of your customers. How do you go about doing that?
So this is a really interesting concept, and basically all it says is that most people will go about their daily lives, and what we want is basically familiarity. We want to be able to know that if you go into a Starbucks, you know exactly. You can go to a Starbucks across anywhere in the world, and you know what you're going to get. You know what it's going to look like. You know what the product's going to be like. You know what the staff are going to be wearing. You know what the menu is. You know the experience. You know where you're going to have to collect your coffee from. That is transaction management in its purest.
Well, that's a franchise. That's what franchises are good at.
Yeah, but that's what people love, and that's what people buy into a franchise. With the small business, and the difficulty for small business owners is, like, how do I pry that person who has built that into their daily lives to come to my store and try what I do, you know, because I do something amazing or my product's amazing, and I've got to just get them to try it. But you've got to break into that circle. And that's where this concept of kind of reaction management comes from. And it's really says that as a small business owner, the only way you can build sustainable and repetitive business is that you've got to wow someone, not just with your product, but from the moment they walk into your door. And so, you know, how do you greet them? What do they feel like when they open the door? How do they feel when they come to walk towards your store? You know, how do they feel when you have your product? How do they feel when they leave? Because studies have tend to show that you actually need to get someone in 4 times into your store or restaurant for them to start becoming actually a regular, consistent customer. So you think that's 4 different kind of marketing experiences that each time you've got to get them in. Not only you get them in once, well, how do I get them again and again and again? And so reaction management is all about a small business owner going above and beyond and really focusing on what their customer needs are and wowing them.
Well, I love this. Spoken about it a number of times on the show before. Josh Nichols from Platinum Electricians is a past guest that absolutely nails this. He has a 21-step customer mantra that spells out every step of the way what you need to do to wow a customer. Do you have something similar? Is it in your head? What's it look like?
So our focus is very much on first of all, we focus on environment. So we have the store is it's a very cheery environment. Then we want when we deal with customers, we try and get our staff to be bright and cheery. How are they welcomed? You know, welcome to the store. Then we try and have an open conversation. So we let people try anything they want. You know, there's only 4 flavors. You can try all 4 of them. You know, which one do you like? Which one you don't like? And it's having that open conversation. You know, what are you looking for? And then at the end, how do we greet them? How do we say goodbye to them? Those are kind of the 4 things we focus on. It's really kind of like how they feel when they come into the store. How do you greet them? What the product tastes like, and how do you say goodbye in a simplified form. That's what we focus on.
And is that an easy thing to do when you start to hand it over to other people? I'm sure it's okay when you and Victoria are behind the counter. One of the regular gripes from business owners I speak to is people. Us human beings are difficult creatures. So how are you how many staff have you got out of interest?
So at the moment it's me and Victoria, and then we have 4 other staff.
Okay, so how do you get them to be completely embracing of the Frozen Fruit Co brand?
A big part for us is that we try and lead by example. And I feel that's a really key one, because, you know, if staff see us acting like that, then they're going to be like, well, I need to act like that as well. And we try and really encourage a positive environment. So we don't, you know, if a staff member's not doing something like we want them to, we try not to criticize or condemn, or we try and be like, this is how, like, we try and have an overall objective, which is our goal is to make someone's days better. It's as simple as that. So as soon as someone comes in and a staff member's like, oh, what do I do? Just think, what can you do to make this person's day better? You know, whether it's just
I like that.
Just, you know, a treat that will make them happy, or, you know, a thank you or a goodbye or a how are you, or, you know, for example, so many people come in and they drop their cones or their tubs on the floor inside the store, outside the store. You know, we give them, the policy is just give them another one, because there's nothing worse than that. You know, that's going to make someone's day infinitely worse. They just paid for something and then they don't get another one. Yep. So we try and enforce this overarching policy of how can you make someone's day better, and try and be.
I love that. It's not dissimilar to what Tony Shea at Zappos has been doing for years. I mean, he's written the Bible on it, really, called Delivering Happiness, and that starts with the staff, by the way, not with the customer. And I think that's a really interesting phrase that you've come up with, which is, you know, how do we make someone's day better? Because I think we could all adopt that. You could have adopted that when you were a lawyer. I just really like it. It's a wonderful mindset to go in with, because it can only lead to a positive outcome, I guess, for the staff member and for the customer. Tell me, you've got a Kickstarter campaign underway because you want to get into the LA food truck scene.
Yeah, so we bought a food truck. Well, one of the questions we constantly get asked is, we would love to have you in different parts of LA. Where can you open? And, you know, opening new stores, it costs a lot of money. But more importantly, the thing that scares us about new stores is kind of like, is where's going to be a next good location. So a truck kind of is a nice medium. The food truck industry here is really established. So we're kind of like, well, it's a nice medium. It'll help us kind of increase from marketing's perspective, help increase awareness. People can see the truck. We can have it around the store. But it also means we can do events, but we can go to another part of LA and, you know, and see, okay, is it really busy here or is it not? You know, is this a place that we could actually think about start opening up another store? So that's what got us really excited about wanting to do LA's first completely vegan, plant-based ice cream truck.
I just find it amazing that this concept hasn't been done before, particularly in LA. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's not often you come across a new idea in business.
Well, that was another reason when we came up with it, we were kind of put off it, because we're like, well, you know, someone must have done this by now. Why isn't there? And you're starting to see more of the industry move that way, but it's more kind of like almond milk bases or kind of alternative nut bases. No one kind of makes it purely from fruit pulp and natural fruit sugars the way we do.
What's the best thing that's happened to you both since starting Frozen Fruit Co?
That's a really good question. You know what? I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like you can read a lot and kind of learn as much as you can about business, but you just don't experience, and running a business are just two completely different things. And actually, I'm so grateful that we've just done this process. And, you know, I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and I'm probably not going to be the same person, you know, next year.
What's the big change in Michael Philippou since starting?
I feel starting a business is a lot harder than you think. I used to think maybe a bit naively, it was just come up with an idea and it's pretty easy. And that awareness is, you know, the hardest bit about starting a business is actually, you know, letting people know you exist. You know, you think, I now drive around the street and I see other businesses and I start to think to myself, well, how do people know to go to this place? You know,
I think that every day of my life. That's partly why I do this show. I mean, isn't it a fascinating question where you go, you know, how do they exist? How do they get found? How are they making a living?
Yeah, and it's so much more for appreciation of bigger businesses that, you know, have done things like Zappos. They've done things so right, and you think, well, how did they get to that point? And kind of reconstructing and trying to think about that, right? You know, it's just, I find that so fascinating in itself.
I would, if I drove past your business, I would have the same thought, Michael, because I look at an ice cream business not dissimilar to, say, a cafe. You got to sell, and I know it's not ice cream, but, you know, bear with me. We'll use that as the overarching term. I'd look at your business and go, how are they making money? You got to sell a lot of cones and cups to cover rent, wages, utilities, marketing, everything else that goes with it. I mean, what does the business model look like for you and Victoria to lead a good life over in Santa Monica?
Yeah, that's a great one. And to be honest, to add to that, I walk past stores and I count the number of staff that are in a store now, just to get an idea of, hold on, right, what's your staff cost? But to answer that question, it is we need more than one store. I mean, if it was just me and Victoria and we were running the store constantly, aside from kind of being burnt out, you know, we were profitable from day one, which was great. But, you know, it's about scalability and, you know, we can't constantly be working in the store. So we need to build a model when it's more than one store.
So scale. So, okay, leads to my final question then. Where are you going to be in 5 years' time? Is it a franchise? Is it a whole lot of trucks on the road? You're going to wholesale? Maybe you're going to do events? What's it look like?
This is what we've been talking about recently. I really like the idea. The idea of franchising both kind of scares me and it doesn't at the same time. But I think we would like to have a few more stores in LA, a few more trucks. And then once we've kind of hammered and really nailed down the business operation model, I think franchising could be a really good opportunity for the business.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Hold on to a few company stores and then hand out a few franchise license. I think it's a great story, Michael. I really do. I'm excited for you guys. Anytime I hear what piqued my interest in getting on the show was, you loved my show, so I, always bow to my fans. But I also love the fact when people make big career decisions and move on from something that could have set them up for life, but have instead gone and chased something that they love to do. So where can people find you? Give us the street address and the website.
Yep, you can find us in Santa Monica at 729 Montana Avenue, Suite 2. And then basically it's on the corner of Lincoln and Montana. And you can...
what a great address.
and you can... it took me a long time to work out all the cross streets, I'll tell you. And then online you can find us. It's Frozen Fruit Co. That's co.com. And then on Kickstarter you can find us. Just search Frozen Fruit Co.
Brilliant, mate. Michael and Victoria, congratulations on what I hope is a huge success for you going forward.
Thank you.
Well, there you go, team. Michael Philippou from the Frozen Fruit Co. Feeling inspired? Ready to quit your day job if you've got one and start something you love in a foreign country? Hey, what Michael didn't remind us of or tell us about is that he's also blogging about his entrepreneurial journey over at mystartupfriend.com. So check that out as well. Hang around after I share my top 3 attention grabbers, which are coming up shortly from that chat with Michael, as I respond to a scathing note from a listener who was rather critical of last week's interview. Plus, I've got some more prizes to give away in the Monster Prize Draw. But first, here's a sweet little business tip from past guest and Amex member, Chris Gray. Here's a money-making tip from American Express member and Four Pillars Gin founder, Stu Gregor.
I, for the life of me, don't understand why a business won't accept Amex, because what you're potentially doing is knocking back customers who want to spend money on your product or your brand or your service or whatever it is. And I frankly don't understand it. If someone wants to give me their Amex and buy 10 bottles of gin, I tell you what, I'll take their Amex, thanks very much. You're potentially also denying yourself a big chunk of corporate business as well. Because a lot of sales guys, I know me, in my own business, I use Amex. And if I go to if I ring to make a booking at a restaurant or a bar or something, I say, do you accept Amex? And they say no, I go somewhere else. So they don't even know the business they're missing out on. It beggars belief. And I often find myself having these rather awkward conversations at the with a shopkeeper or a bar owner or a restaurateur saying, why wouldn't you take it? I'll pay you the extra. I'll pay 1.5, the credit card service fee or whatever you want. Take my money.
It's Business 101, really. make it easy for people to give you money. Speaking of money, the American Express Business Explorer credit card comes with 50,000 bonus points every year, a low interest rate, and 2 points on every dollar you spend. Not to mention a couple of tickets to the very swish Amex Lounge at Sydney International Airport. Search Amex Business to find out more. New American Express card members only. Terms and conditions apply. Righto, my top 3 attention grabbers from that chat with Frozen Fruit Co.'s Michael Philippou, thanks to American Express. Attention grabber number 1. I love Michael's approach to wowing his customers, and in particular, that one simple question he and Victoria ask themselves often, which is, how should the customer feel when they... you fill in the blank. When they walk in the store, read the menu, interact with your staff, taste your product. It's a great question. How should the customer feel? Because people forget what you said. They remember how you made them feel. If wowing your customer is part of your marketing that you're struggling with, then I'd also just suggest reading my mate Amanda Stevens' book called Turning Customers into Advocates, and I'll include a link to that book in my show notes. Attention grabber number 2. I love how Michael and Victoria made a very, very conscious decision to place themselves in a highly innovative environment by moving to Santa Monica, the heart of veganism. Now, I'm not suggesting we all pack our bags and head north or south, but I am suggesting it would be a good idea to take stock of who you're hanging around with most of the time when it comes to seeking business inspiration. You know what? Those people that you are hanging around with most of the time, whether you know it or not, will be impacting heavily on yours and your business's success. And attention grabber number 3. I love the fact that the Frozen Fruit Co.'s menu is limited to just 4 flavours. Now, that's a gutsy move, but I reckon a smart move. Like I said, choice hinders decision. So if you want to make it easier for people to choose to buy from you, offer them a small selection of well-thought-out products or services. Simples. They'll love you for it. That's what grabbed my attention. You'll find all the links and all the resources mentioned in that chat over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/415. Okay. Now, I get a lot of good feedback from this show. I've got like 420 or so listener reviews on iTunes, most of them 5-star. I get some wonderful emails from you guys telling me what a good job I do. That's great for the ego. But I genuinely do appreciate constructive feedback. If it's negative, that's cool. But as long as it's constructive and not hurtful, then, all is good. And I got an email this week from a listener. I'm not going to say their name. I don't think that's important. But I'd like to respond to it. And maybe you've got a point of view that you want to share with me as well. It's all about last week's episode with the 2 Instagrammers, Stephanie and Laura, who have a very big following of 1.3 million fans, and have created a business from it. So I'll read this email out and respond to it along the way. This person says, "Hey, Timbo, love the show, mate. Keep it up." Cool. So far, so good. We'll stop there. I feel compelled to let you know. Don't know why, to be honest. Well, because you care, probably. But the most recent podcast with the 2 girls was all fluff and a wasted 60 minutes of my life. Oh, you're not going to get that 60 minutes back. Boy, oh boy, I've wasted someone's time. I love your show, mate, but this one here was incorrectly set up. Nothing against the girls, but getting your looks and body out on Instagram is not what I would call marketing. This person's not referring to my looks or my body. He's referring to Stephanie's and Claire's. Sure, it's their body and they can market how they want, but the whole segment I had these 2 girls acting like they knew about marketing. to then only go onto their Insta page and see boobs and G-strings. Nothing against that, mate. They are beautiful women, but they are not marketers. Okay, stop. Allow me to respond. Now, yes, their Instagram is full of very beautiful shots. Some could call it soft porn. I think that might be going a bit too far. Suffice to say, they're not afraid to show themselves off. They're very beautiful women. And I made a point in that episode of not playing on that at all. In fact, I sought advice from one of my mentors who said, don't be the middle-aged guy perving in the corner, right? And I wasn't. These girls, they're 24. They've got a number of businesses as a direct result of their Instagram following. Like 21 products in Coles supermarkets nationally, an online training program for young women that's doing 60 grand a month plus, a sunglasses brand, a bikini brand, more, the ambassadors for other brands. I mean, mate, these people are marketers. Whether they're getting their boobs and G-strings out, that's okay. That's their thing. Okay, get back off my soapbox and get back into the email. This person then goes on to say, nothing against that, mate. They're beautiful women, but they're not marketers. Felt so stupid once I checked their pages out and cannot help but feel you did it to just boost your audience appeal. Well, that's not true. If I wanted to do that, I would have posted photos of them in the lead up to the episode, some of the photos they got on Instagram. I would have made more reference and been more descriptive in their Instagram pages, but I left it for you to check out. I focused on the fact that they've built an incredibly big following and launched a number of businesses. So I don't think I did kind of do it to boost my audience appeal at all, actually. I was just incredibly interested in how you build such a big following on social media and monetize it. Back to the email. I hope you didn't do that, mate, as your show is awesome. We're back. You're back. The best shows are real business owners who have worked their asses off, started from scratch. This episode felt so fake from start to finish. Look, that's crap. It's just not true. These girls have worked their asses off. One studying law part-time and running the business. I mean, they're working really hard. And I think that's quite offensive. Why am I writing this? Is it because I'm bored? Maybe, but it's mainly to help you. Well, thank you. I mean, I get a lot of feedback on my podcast too, and I think it only helps. So this person's a fellow podcaster. Keep it real, mate, please, and keep helping us business owners, not showing us fluff pieces. And that's the end of the email. Well, you know, some people would say don't respond to these types of emails. I don't think it is one of those types of emails. I think that's constructive. I love to know what you think, good, bad or indifferent. Otherwise, you know, as a podcaster, you feel like you're talking down the mic and nobody's at the other end. So I do appreciate emails like this. I just think in this case, this person is wrong. But it's their opinion. It's a subjective thing, whether you like an interview, an episode or whatever it is, a book you're reading or whatever. One person's love is another person's trash. So whatever. Anyway, thought I'd share it. If you have an opinion about an episode or something I say on the podcast, I'd love to hear it. My email, tim@timreid, reid.com.au.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Oh, yes. Let's have a bit of fun. Let's lighten the mood around here, hey? Time to reward some motivated business owners, in fact, listeners, for taking action and sharing that action. That's what the Monster Prize Draw is all about. All I ask you to do is email me, tim@timreid.com.au. Tell me an idea, one idea you've implemented from listening to this show, and most importantly, what impact it's had on your business. If I read it out on air, you'll receive a prize or two and go into the draw to win a hot lap in a Porsche with past guest and race car legend Steve Richards, and that's valued at $2,500. I'll announce that at the end of the year. It's pretty simple, right? All right, who are today's winners? Well, listen, before I announce today's two winners and share their marketing idea, I'm going to read an email from a listener who did enter but they're not going to win because they didn't take action. I won't say who it is. They'll know who it is if they hear this. They say, hey, Timbo, I can't remember which specific session you said it on, but years ago you said, and I quote, don't wait till everything is perfect. Just do it. Close quote. I did say that. I say it often. I keep remembering that. Well, I try to. Regards, beep. Now, that's only half an entry because you haven't taken action. You remember it, you try to, but not always. I want to know specifically an idea you've taken from the show, how you've implemented it in your business and what impact it's had. So sorry, long-time listener, and I know you are a long-time listener, but I can't give you a prize. But I can give a prize to these two people. This is from Ben Cavosso from the On Button, who says, hey, Timbo, embracing my personal brand. That is what I've learnt from your show. Being authentic to my brand character when I speak, write and market myself and my business. The more I am authentic and not try to be someone else, the more my clients and potential clients connect with my offering. Correct. Oscar Wilde once said, be yourself, everyone else is taken, right? It's true. It's hard being someone else. Ben goes on to say, in writing a recent book called Life CEO, I kept true to my character and tone. The feedback has been amazing. Life CEO. Sounds like a good book. Stay amazing, mate. Cheers, Ben. P.S. This is something you do super well. You're my mentor on this. Thanks, Dr. Benny. For that, you get some prizes. You get a bottle of rare, dry 4 Pillars gin, valued at $75. You get a double pass to the Amex Lounge at Melbourne and Sydney International Airports. And an additional prize I am awarding and handing to past winners as well is a backlink on the smallbusinessbigmarketing.com website. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is a pretty valuable backlink. Righto, next winner on the Monster Prize Draw this week, Christopher Herman. Timbo, I like the way you say, big show today. I've used catchphrases to give my podcast a structure, a fellow podcaster. I find myself latching onto these catchphrases when I listen to other shows as well, and I think it has helped me grow my show. Keep up the good work, Timbo. Sincerely, Chris from realworldredneck.com. I love the name of that show, that website and your podcast, Chris. I listened to an episode a few years ago from memory. Haven't listened to it, but it's great that you continue to do it, mate. Those catchphrases are really important because they're a way to get into a topic and then share the content as opposed to stuffing around and figuring out how am I going to get into that conversation. So it's good to have a catchphrase going in and also one going out. Now, Christopher, you are overseas, my friend. You are in America, being a redneck and all. So your prize is a $100 Frozen Fruit Co voucher. I'm guessing as a redneck you don't live in Santa Monica. That's probably stereotyping you, but we'll go with that. Plus you'll get a backlink on my website, buddy. But I hope you or some friends can make it down to Santa Monica and try some of Michael and Victoria's yummy soft serve fruit thingamy jiggamy. That is the Small Business Big Marketing Monster Prize Draw for this week. Email me your ideas that you've implemented and how they've impacted your business. tim@timreid.com.au. Oh, yes, indeedly doodly. Boy, oh boy, you and I cover some serious marketing ground in this show. Previously, we've caught up with Booktopia's founder, Tony Nash. That's the biggest online bookstore in Australia, who shared what it takes to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And speaking of strong entrepreneurial mindsets, what about the two chats we've had with Thank You founder Daniel Flynn? Wowee! Inspiring stuff. If you haven't listened to them, I would suggest go back because, what do they say? What you put in, you get out. You'll find both those episodes plus hundreds more over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com or subscribe free on your favourite podcast app, which means you're never going to miss another episode. Love that. Hey, I'd love to hear from you. Hit the contact button over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. You can email me. Connect with me on social media. My Twitter handle, Timbo Reid. Sign up. And you can grab a free copy of my book, The Boomerang Effect, over on my website. Big thanks to American Express for exclusively sponsoring this episode. If you love the idea of your business expenses rewarding you, why wouldn't you? Then search Amex Business. You know, I've had a few listeners ask which card is best. Now, while that may depend on your individual circumstances, I reckon a good place to start would be to take a look at the Business Explorer card. It's a beauty. If you love the Small Business Big Marketing Show, then let another business owner know about it by grabbing their phone and downloading it for them. In fact, could you do that to 5 of your closest business owning friends in the next 24 hours and just let me know you've done it? Thank you. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.